Thank you everybody and welcome. This is the last session here as a panel discussion before we end our day 2 agenda. So what we have here is a very interesting and exciting topic, and I've been supporting organizations in their digital transformation journey over the past many years, but this is the time when I'm hearing a lot more about automation and intelligent automation. One thing that I did was, before coming here, I asked ChatGPT in terms of how it defines intelligent automation, and I quote, intelligent automation refers to the use of advanced technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, natural language processing, and robotic process automation to automate business processes and tasks. The goal of intelligent automation is to create a more efficient and effective organization by combining the strengths of human intelligence and machine intelligence. So it did not miss out the point on human intelligence. It was quite modest. So it's an interesting definition, and what I did was I really asked ChatGPT in terms of what's the adoption level of intelligent automation across organizations, and that's where it started giving me out answers which I would not expect. So what we did was we, as a consulting firm, did our own research, spoke to a lot of colleagues in the industry, and what we found out was traditional point automation solutions peaked at about 90% growth in 2020, and then by 2021 the growth had declined to about 16%, and now today they are at about 16 to 20% growth as point automation solutions. On the other side, what we saw was enterprise-wide automation solutions had started growing rapidly, and the more interesting fact that we saw was customer-facing industries were starting to adopt enterprise-wide automation a lot more. What that said was it's not necessarily anymore about cost takeout and efficiency, it's a lot more about top-line growth as well as driving customer experience, driving employee experience, along with the traditional benefits of automation, which is definitely cost takeout and efficiency. So one of the key things that I also noticed that is implementing intelligent automation is not easy. Less than 50% of the projects see the light of the day from a pilot stage, and who we have here is a esteemed panelist of practitioners, which I wanted to use, who have been through that journey, who have taken care of multiple factors such as interoperability of systems, quality of data, skills and change management to really drive intelligent automation at scale. So what I'll do is I'll quickly introduce our panelists here, and then we can jump onto the rounds. So first we have let me get your details correct.
Which ChatGPT use for details?
Sorry. So I have Jairo second to me here. He's the SVP of Global Business Services and Head of Global RPA and AI COE at Equifax. He leads the RPA AI program globally, including business transformation, big data analytics, and cybersecurity, as well as other areas within operations. He has over 24 years of experience with Equifax. Welcome, Jairo.
Happy to be here.
Then I have Thomas Rich, Senior VP and Head of Enterprise Intelligent Automation Product Management at Truist. Prior to heading Intelligent Automation practice, Thomas actually led the swap dealer operations as well as capital market operations. He comes from the SunTrust part of Truist and has past experience with GE as well. And then we have Chad. Welcome, Chad. Chad is Global Head of Intelligent Automation COE at Uber. He has over 22 years of experience in system integration, concept implementation, project management, process improvement. Prior to working with Uber, Chad worked with Salesforce and Blue Shield of California and GE as well. And finally, we have Neeraj Manik, Vice President and Senior Partner with IBM, who comes with a rich experience in business transformation for large organizations using intelligent automation, analytics, operating model redesign as well. He also has some experience with GE, I believe.
I would agree with that.
Great. Thank you, everybody. My first question to the panelists here is, all of you actually have been leading intelligent automation COEs. Can you take us through your journey and how the adoption levels have changed over time? You can start.
Sure. Yeah, so our journey started about 4.5 years ago. We were an incubator within the finance organization. So it's a little bit different than many organizations sitting in traditional IT. We sit in finance. I think the evolution started, we were a team just doing RPA for about 1.5 years, maybe almost 2 years. We gained a lot of insights to what the business was looking for, what they needed, and we pivoted over the past 2.5 years around more intelligent automation. So we now we still support finance, but we are also in 15 different lines of business across Uber. So we've expanded our global reach across the organization. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 more that we're trying to get in and do automation for, but I would say now we're about a 70% RPA shop and 30% more intelligent automation using OCR, machine learning, and chatbots.
Great. Jairo.
Yeah, so at Equifax, we started in 2016, our journey, trying to organize ourselves in the automation space, right? So we've done automation for years. I have 24 years at the company, so something that we've always done. But at the end of the time, we decided that it was important for us to take a step into understanding what the possibilities were with RPA technology. So that's how we set our journey to start. We defined a vision. I guess almost 7 years after, we've developed in production. We've developed in production, but we developed and put in production about 660 bots at this time. So it's a massive implementation. Like you, we started in finance. We now have bots deployed in all 25 different territories. And I do run captive operations, so I do have to apply myself first, before I could go out and sell it. So that was the first challenge. And like many of us, started with RPA, we defined a journey, machine learning, AI, which was truly important. That's what we actually focus right now, which is we're applying Google Cloud AI services into everything we do in order to reach higher efficiencies, and of course tackle larger problems. That's where we are right now.
Great.
Sure. So Truist's robotics or intelligent automation program is a little bit unique. Truist is the birth child of SunTrust Bank and BB&T Bank. And the journey started for each probably around the same time, around 2015, 2016. And I think the catalyst of it was, if you're not automating, you're wrong. So we better get on board with this. So each of them used their respective platforms, and then over time we got into a common platform. The program for us is going through a little bit of a reboot now, as we try to kind of build for the future and build for scale. And then we'll touch on later, obviously, what that means and kind of the breadth and depth of intelligent automation, because I think we have a little bit of a unique view there. So yeah, that's our story.
So Neeraj, to you, it'll be more from a provider community standpoint, right? So you would have seen clients demanding intelligent automation as part of the service. So how has that practice grown within your organization?
I've kind of spent more than 2 decades in the business process transformation services space, right? Reminding everybody in the crowd here, SAP scripting, macros were kind of the early days, like super early days, right? And then came in the RPA. I think over the last few years, what we are seeing right now, our clients adopt, and what we are proposing is, and what we're deploying is what we call as intelligent workflows. It's a different name for intelligent automation, but essentially using an open ecosystem of automation, AI, ML, including several IBM technologies like DataGap, Watson, and so on and so forth, to really drive transformation of the business processes. So every client, every industry is unique and at different level of maturity, but clearly we've come a long way, and still there is tremendous opportunity in terms of our clients and several industries to adopt more and more as we move forward.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody. So Thomas, actually, my next question is to you. And basically, when you define intelligent automation, it's traditionally been a broad spectrum of tools, technologies that go into intelligent automation. How will you define what intelligent automation is and what it is not? And also, can organizations really have to go through a journey, or is it something that organization can jump onto immediately as a arrangement, not going through, say, potentially RPA, process standardization, and then intelligent automation?
Yeah, great question. So I think at its origin, right, intelligent automation, when it started, was predominantly RPA, or robotics process automation. And I think, through the evolution of technology and obviously what we've seen over the course of the last couple of years, more and more tools have kind of been brought on to our disposal. What we started recognizing and noticing that RPA, and to your point, right, isn't exactly the solution for all your problems, right? It is, I use the example of it's an excavator at times to plant a rose bush, right? You don't necessarily need that tool for a particular use case. Or the processes themselves are so complex that you're setting your digital workforce up for failure. So the way we started thinking about intelligent automation is a host of tools, ranging from data mining to OCR, IDP type solutions, or where we smart workflows. So think of Pegas or Appians, right? Kind of at an orchestration level. How can you use these tools at your disposal and implement them in a way to most optimize your workflow, or most optimize your return on investment? And then, sorry, I missed your second question. I apologize.
So one of the part was what intelligent automation is not. Sometimes, if everybody classifies anything that they're doing under the intelligent automation umbrella.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic question. I think that is one of the biggest things that we try to educate our teammates with is you can't automate a broken process, right? So creating a strategic alliance with your BPM teams or your process engineering teams, should you have luxury of having those, I think are super critical to the success of your program. Far too often, I think, when RPA started, it's going to be the answer to all of your problems. And that's not really the case, right? It's highly repetitive, constant, super mundane, swivel chair type of activity, right? That's what robotics process automation is very good at. If it's anything outside of that spectrum or has a high variability or a lot of human involvement, you may want to find another tool, re-engineer the process, put a workflow tool in place that's going to do the heavy lifting, and then infuse RPA within that workflow to help streamline that process. So I think that is something I think we've learned the hard way. I don't want to say that we set up our digital teammates for failure, but in some cases we did. But I think that was the implementation and the adoption that this will be the answer to everything, and that's not necessarily the case.
Sounds good. Any comments that you want to add something to it, or?
So what it's not, in my early days, not C-3POs or R2D2s, not Terminators. That's what I
There we go. Yeah, that's another. They are. And that's a great point, right? We overemphasize to our teammates. These are your assistants. These are your teammates, right? It is not software deployment, despite what people think. This is not an application. We refer to them as teammates without human heartbeats, right? Because in theory, they still have a technical heartbeat. But it's the education program of what, again, this is. This is your assistant. This is your teammate. They take sick days. Sometimes they go on vacation, right? So you need to be able to fulfill their roles and responsibilities should your digital teammate go on vacation, or should your digital teammate take a sick day. So
that's an interesting perspective. So Chad, question for you. Uber, as an organization, is a digitally native organization, right? It's not traditional in any sense. So how do you see deploying intelligent automation being different in an organization with your background compared to some of the more traditional organizations?
Yeah, so I think the difference for me when I think of my time at GE or my time at Toshio, California, our business partners at Uber, because we are a heavily tech company and we're tech forward, they come with an automation mindset. So it's just easier for us to have that conversation and deploy automations for the organization. I think what the challenge for us would be is, in terms of being a tech company, we're heavily focused on product, and so our product team wants to continue to build. So it's really trying to figure out with our, the product leadership team, IT, and our counterparts on where do we want to automate. And, RPA could be typically, a small part of the process. What we want to do is we want to look at it from an end-to-end transformation, and that's kind of what we've done. An example is invoice processing. Because of the work that we've done across the organization, they wanted us to take a look at the process and do a piece of it. We looked at it, we used some process mining to understand that process and really found out that it was completely inefficient. And we're able to use RPA, OCR, and some ML to standardize that and replace Equifax and use our homegrown solution as well. So these are the types of automations that we look for across the organization. And then on top of that, thinking of, we talked about this earlier as well, right? We are heavily tech focused, but our partners, for example, in voice processing, right? We need to work with those partners and make sure that they're thinking about the tech also. So it's educating not only ourselves, but also our partners that we work with across.
That's an interesting perspective, because you are a product-focused company. So is it hard for you to think from a process perspective? Because automation generally comes from process. You need to have a process mindset. But intelligent automation is now taking that process mindset back into product mindset, where you're looking at intelligent automation-based products. So do you see we're coming a full circle, or is there a change management from a mindset and a thought process requirement?
Well, so in terms of the products, so the work that we do, we're internal business partners, so I don't actually work on the actual product itself, but I work with product across, for example, building or processing is internal. But no, so it's more aligned, more along the lines of just working with the appropriate teams and making sure that our agenda is aligned with what our leadership is looking for us to do.
Sounds good. Jairo, I think a question to you now. And a lot of our organizations dabble with intelligent automation. They do a few pilots, shelf a lot of the projects, but have not been able to do it at scale. I think you've been, as an organization, have been able to drive intelligent automation, starting with automation and then intelligent automation at scale. What's your secret sauce been?
So, interesting question there. And I think those that have been successful, they may have different ways in which they have created the space for intelligent automation to grow and bloom. I think for us, I can summarize it in 3 buckets in my mind. So one is, how do you tackle it from a strategic perspective? How do you tackle it from a technology execution perspective? And then, of course, how do you manage expectations from a people process perspective? From a strategic view, at least for Equifax, we declared a vision since we started, right? So we weren't doing this because somebody was, came up with a good idea or because we had a business issue. We said we want to completely transform the way we operate the business. So we declared the vision. Now, declaring the vision was not enough. We had to really work hard at the early stages to make sure that we were connecting the dots. Our vision, company vision, strategic objectives. So managing the C-suite was very, very important, from the CEO to CEO, CFO. How does this program could play a role into the very important things the company was setting in their growth plans or growth playbook. From a strategic to a tactical, more tactical, I think for those that are starting the journey or my colleagues can share the experience, for us, doing POCs was not enough. So our big lesson learned was think about prototype rather than POC, right? Because especially now, technology is, you have lots of documentation, it works, right? But you think prototype, it means you're thinking incremental benefits or incremental efficiencies. So setting expectations right from the get-go is going to be really important. That's important to us. So when we build that model in, we were thinking big. We were prepared to fail fast and really get that feedback loop going so that we could celebrate success, but also be transparent about the things that didn't work well, right? And there are many challenges along the way. One is particularly people, right? If you don't think about people and how do you remove the fear factor out of your workforce, then the project is not gonna scale, because at this point in time, most of these processes are executed by bots now that were executed by humans. So in order for the bot to think, because they don't think, but in order for them to execute, we needed the people, right, to share their knowledge so that we can actually capture it and then execute it. So then you gain the benefits of the speed, scale, or resilience, especially in COVID environments. For us, 3 years ago, it was a critical move because all of a sudden we didn't have the people who couldn't get to work. So how could we continue to run the company if we didn't have the people, right? Without that program, then it would have been a different story. And enabling your organization is going to be truly important. We talk about digital adoption programs, talk about citizen developer programs. For us is, how do you educate? So we do have a very strong program where we do have marketing campaigns as any other, organization, where we're constantly sharing success and opportunities. What's the art of the possible? We also have a very strong program that started with a lean approach. So we start certifying from a process improvement perspective, automation champions, we call them. Right now, it's more on the citizen developer approach, but it's not kind of free-for-all type of thing. We make them go through a process, similar than when we got our green belt, right? Certification. We had to pick a project, kind of work it. Then there was a committee kind of, reviewing it. Yeah, reviewing it, and you got the green belt, right? That's how we have infused automation from a citizen developer perspective, knowing that there is a strong focus on governance. Right.
Can I just say something? I also feel like we have to be a bunch of salesmen. When we first start the journey, people don't really know what it is, and you have to go out and sell and make sure that you're building the right automations to be able to retain that book of business and continue to help them optimize.
So that's an interesting perspective, and Neeraj, I wanted to hear your thoughts, especially around intelligent automation from a service provider perspective. How is your engagement model changing when you're talking to customers who already have an automation COE and you're probably delivering services across different areas? So how do you do that, and what investments do typically organizations like you, like IBM, bring to the table and partner with them?
So from an IBM consulting perspective, intelligent automation, there are many ways in which we would engage with enterprise clients. Okay. One model is to partner directly with enterprise AI and intelligent automation COEs, right? Only for that specific area. We are in this space. I'll spend a minute on this first. In this space, what we are doing is we are partnering with clients who are embarking on their journey. I mean, some of your early adopters here, right? And some of them are kind of coming of age now, trying to get some structure and organization around this, and taking some of these lessons that you just shared with us today. What we are doing there is helping them with methods, frameworks, expertise, bringing in the whole model on how really to conceive the automation COE, how to organize it, how to govern it between business and technology teams, and then how do we really bring the best of breed technologies from the ecosystem. Now in this case, it is IBM technology plus anything that's out there that's relevant for the industry in terms of industry platforms, any AI models that are relevant for the industry use cases or client use cases. So how do we bring it all together and help create the COE, right? So taking it from a hobby to a serious business practice and an intentional strategy on driving intelligent automation at an enterprise grade. And so that is one service and one area where we see tremendous traction and tremendous value. And the way enterprises consume this service varies. So sometimes it is more around bringing the IP, getting it set up. Sometimes it's do that and then plus bring in squads capacity. Sometimes it's infusion of specific skills because certain skills are available, certain are not. And then how do we work with that? So varying shades of models around how we would supplement services on top of our IP to help get clients started on this journey. Now the second aspect of intelligent automation is when we own client operations, business operations on their behalf. Now that's a very different story because there we come with a very organized point of view on what is the best in class processes, what's out there, what's the best in breed for the industry, what is that you can learn from other industries, right? And then how do we really bring that together in our operations? Now here also governance continues to be a key factor. So we got to integrate back, maximize clients and enterprises' current investments in their existing technology. That's rule number one, always, right? Because that's where you got security clearances, you got the whole thing set up. So you want to maximize and sweat those assets. Then you build on top, right? And then how do you govern that jointly in terms of with the automation COEs and so on to make sure it is well orchestrated and we are able to deliver the business outcomes from a business process operations perspective. And for us, outcomes are not limited to productivity savings or even improvement customer experience. It is even beyond that around how do we help improve working capital or how do we really drive revenue growth and things like that, right? So, but essentially that's what we're trying to do. And those are the two facets in which we would typically engage with clients in this space.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue to my actually next question. This is to all of you. And when we talk about intelligent automation and automation, we generally talk about cost and efficiency and better, effective operating models. How has this evolved into potentially supporting top-line growth and also driving other areas of customer experience, employee experience, so on and so forth? So, Jeff, we can start with you here.
Sure. So when I think back when we first started, we didn't have a value-centric approach. We just took any automation we wanted to build and help support efficiencies around finance organization. We had a rough conversation after our first year about how our program was looking in terms of what we're actually saving for the company. And so we really quickly pivoted to a value-centric approach where we actually have a threshold. If we want to pick an automation, it has to hit a certain dollar amount that's going to save the organization money. And that's actually a headcount reduction. So we've scaled the organization to where we were confident and comfortable we could work in more ancillary benefits, such as like compliance, revenue loss potential. So I'll give you an example. One of our biggest use cases that helped us pivot from a revenue perspective is, I'm sure you guys are all aware in London, we were in danger of losing our license. And what happened was, is because of the freight organization where we helped them scale during COVID, because they couldn't hire enough resources, as salesmen that we did roadshows and they found out about our organization. They asked us to quickly pivot and build an automation for them that was used in the courts as material evidence. And really what that was a simple use case. Uber wasn't showing that we were tracking every single safety incident within London. So it was a 6-week automation that was used to help us retain license. If you think about the dollars that could have impacted, that's $2 to $3 million a day. So we pivoted from just a threshold to looking at more in those types of opportunities.
That's a great example.
I would say completely there is an opportunity for RPA practitioners to not only focus on what's efficiencies or what's ROI. Right? I think at the beginning we all got it. We had to prove and demonstrate, so ROI was important. But you do have to set a set of, say, potential benefits and start kind of strategically deviating some of your efforts or focusing some of your efforts towards those objectives so you can prove value. Give an example. So, and then measure, the output of what you have. So today, like I said, we have deployed 660 pods, and we have processed, over the course of this past 5 years, more than 70 million transactions from all sorts. Then when you take that and then you quantify what the potential implication from a human labor perspective is then today our bots are producing the equivalent of 550 FTEs. Right? It's a whole operation, it's a whole site, right? with the advantage that you can retrain and you can scale up and down when we think about, things that are changing in the world, right? But also when you think about that throughput, today we have introduced with automation or bots, not counting ML or document understanding platforms that we've enabled more than 3.5 million hours, man hours. Last year alone as a record, so more than 1.2 million hours. So when you have those conversations at the top, then you'll have probably an opportunity for you to engage in projects that are not necessarily RI related, right? And I start by saying that for us, it was not so much about removing the stuff that nobody wanted to do, more about how can we leverage this technology when there are big issues and big problems that nobody else could solve for, right? And that has enabled us to implement RPA, and then of course cognitive technologies to enable revenue, to save contracts, to pretty much focused on data enrichment activities. For us, as a data technology analytics company, that's a very important matter because you can actually monetize it, right? But you need to think about the use cases that are coming your way, and you need to think about those use cases that you know are out there but are not coming your way. So you have to go and fish.
Thomas, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I can do a quick for time. So we stopped right with we are stopping the ROA-centric kind of model. Because if we're focusing on top line growth, we're taking now the approach of if our teammates are happy, our clients are happy. And if our clients are happy, they're going to do more business for us, right? So that is the relationship we've started to kind of work. How can our digital workforce reduce risk? How can they take away the mundane tasks that allows our teammates to work on the more fun stuff, or the more complicated stuff, right? So just a small tweak in the way you view your program really matters in how it's going to drive that top line growth.
I'll just sneak in a quick 30-second story here. So it's the impact to society and community that we take a lot of pride in. So for one of our clients, the Department of Veteran Affairs, veterans had to wait 27 days on an average to book a service. And with automation, intelligent automation, using a combination of all technologies we just spoke about, it's less than 24 hours today. And so I think it is beyond, it's experience in a way, but I think also just, I think we are very proud that, you can impact the community when you do some of these things as well.
Yeah. That's great to hear. So I think my next question again is, we did talk about governance a little bit, so just wanted all of you to, dig a little bit deeper around the topic of governance, because automation projects or intelligent automation projects have been driven by businesses, they're driven by the COEs, they're driven by IT. So there are a lot of players involved, and the role of IT is growing now again because of the compute requirements. So automation was, RPA was less compute intensive, but when you put in the layer of ML and cognitive and chat, then it starts becoming compute heavy, you need more IT resources. So how is the governance model changing, and how do you ensure standardization and best practice approach is being followed throughout the organization? Chet, do you start first?
Sure. So, because I sit in finance, I think governance is extremely important. Think about, I know we talked about robots not taking vacation, right? Minimal sleep time, but they need to be up and running basically on a 24/7 period. So I think having that, the diligence and the conversation and making sure that your infrastructure is set up for success, right? It's those types of things that need to be discussed and make sure that we're adhering to. I think in terms of scaling your COE, I think you need to look at it in terms of, your operating procedures, your security standards, your framework, right? So that you could scale your organization appropriately across the organization. And I think it's even more important when we talk about business development to have that structure there. It needs to be very crisp and clean if you want to scale.
Do you see some rogue automation popping up here and there within different parts of the businesses?
Well, it's interesting for me because, again, Uber is so large and still today, after 4.5 years, you'd be surprised that people are just still finding out about like our organization. So I had a constant discussion with some of our business partners saying that, we have a COE and we tend to partner with them that way.
Understood. Jairo?
I think from our perspective, we started as a central governance, and we're still central governance. We've grown. So similar than other colleagues here, from a business perspective, we do own the strategy, we own the product. I own the delivery, and I own the support, right? So, and when we think about support, we think about digital workforce, we think about digital operations, all those concepts. How do we service? Because yes, bots break, right? Or the platforms, the ML models, they need to be refreshed and they need to be validated, right? But then more importantly, technology is a core part of what we do. So even though I own it, I don't see the technology. Our COE does have a technology team that is dedicated, and the way I look at it is that it sometimes it's being hard to us. So I know that, but at this point in time, we think about one COE, not think about technology versus what's sitting in ops and whatnot. So I think that's in our case has been pretty successful in taking RPA to cognitive to like what I was sharing, Google Cloud enabled AI services.
Yeah, sounds good. And Thomas, but for you, since you're a bank,
We're
there is
totally different standard.
Yeah.
I think three elements, because I know we're coming up on time here. I think it's education and intake, right? I think it's intake and delivery standards. I think when I think of governance, establishing clear roles and responsibilities between each of the dynamics that impact a program is critical. And then last but not least is support, right? So your product support staff, right? Where does that sit? What does that look like? And how are they empowered to fix the digital teammate when the digital teammate goes down? What can they do versus the standard government?
Okay, sounds good. So I think this is the last question to all of you, and like lightning round, so less than maybe 15 seconds. Can you tell me what three things really work for you? What three things you would have done differently, and maybe three things that you think is going to change substantially in the future? And I'll start with you, Neetu Chair.
So what has really worked well for us is essentially, I'll say one thing, is partnership between business and technology. And that kind of is the crux, right? What does not work well, what I would typically say is, you can't dip your toe in the water. You got to go all in, right? It's like you will constantly fail. You got to celebrate the failures and then eventually the successes. Fail fast, right? And moving forward, I think embracing the ecosystem and innovation at the speed at which it is coming at you is going to be incredibly important. So you got to embrace everything that's coming out there, fail fast and see what will work. Over to you, Thomas.
So I'll take it just slightly differently in kind of the approach we're starting to take now to kind of drive success. It's build flexible, build adaptable, and build modular. Technology today is changing so rapidly and so quickly. With everything that we implement today is obsolete in 3 to 5 years. It's done. So just make sure when you're building out your ecosystem, your COE, a hybrid approach, whatever the case may be, it is built flexibly, adaptably, and of course in a modular fashion.
I think from our perspective, I think from a technology point of view, data point of view, everything that's going on with the AI, I think there's a great opportunity for you to infuse RPA as an actionable arm, right? Something that can execute what data is producing, what machine learning is producing, what you're learning through those processes across the enterprise. Matching both is actually one of the things that we're actually doing, right? So I think challenges, certainly security continues to be a big challenge. And it is important for us not to take that lightly because, if we didn't do it in a secure way, then it's going to impact the whole program. Most importantly, it's going to impact the company. Right?
I'll start with what didn't work. I think what didn't work for us was we just started running the program and we just tried to scale really quickly. I think I like to say crawl, walk, and run. I think if you crawl, walk, and run, you can build a much more scalable organization. I think what worked well is, we were honest to our business partners, and I think that trust, especially where we sat, in the organization was critical for us to build that, camaraderie and trust to help us align and build the right automations for the organization.
Sounds good. I think that brings us to the end of the session, and this was a very insightful discussion. Thank you so much for giving your insights, taking us through your journey, and I hope it helps a lot of other companies and practitioners here to jump onto the intelligent automation bandwagon. So thank you everybody.